So, so what happened with the unique self stuff was it probably started with Ken's conversations with Andrew Cohen. So Cohen is a spiritual teacher. He's one of the several in this mix who's incredibly controversial. So just set aside the teacher and not throw away the teaching is what I keep saying about some of these characters. But what he and Ken did, Cohen had a magazine that's called Enlighten Next now, but in the old days it was called What is Enlightenment? And they would have a conversation, and it would be in every issue of the magazine. And one issue, they were talking about what they called evolutionary enlightenment. So enlightenment in the traditional Eastern sense is that merging with the source or being or all there is. And what they were saying is that's only part of the puzzle, because one can be deeply immersed in God or beingness, and if they haven't done some kind of development, right, then it's only half of the puzzle. And that was the first time that it really made sense to me. Oh, right, so we develop psychologically and morally and all of that, and there's this deep, deep true self, if you will, and that combination is really enlightenment in the modern world. And from that, a group of people who gathered around the Integral Institute, primarily Sally Kempton, who's a Swami in the Kashmir Shaivism tradition of Hinduism, Mark Gaffney, who is a rabbi and strongly schooled in the Kabbalah, so mystical Judaism. Diane Hamilton, who's a sensei in the Zen Buddhist tradition. Father Thomas Keating, who's a Christian mystic, and Brother David Standelrast, who's another Christian mystic. And then there were lots of others who began to say, so if we have all of this information from the world's traditions, and we have all of this research of ego development and moral development and faith development, how does this come together in a way that all of the traditions can use it? So it is, in a sense, without content in terms of the spirituality. In other words, how you get to that place where you know that you're not separate from the divine is how you do that. And there are many ways, as we know, many paths. But that the traditions, at least the people that in that group that represented those traditions, could say, but this is common across the traditions. So that's where the unique self-teaching began. And for me, as I said in my introduction, the synthesis then helped me to relax and say, okay, so this is how my work matters in the world, that both of those aspects can come together and make a great deal of difference. So one of the things that the unique self-teaching says is that there's a difference between uniqueness and specialness, right? Because we've been really strong, from those of us that have been deeply immersed in, at least in certain spiritual traditions, have been strongly schooled against specialness, right? And many of us that were just raised in our culture were schooled against specialness, right? And I can remember my mother saying things to me like, stop looking in the mirror, right? You think too much of yourself. Because what she wanted was a child that was humble, She wanted a child whose head wasn't too big, right? And there is that egoticity that's difficult. But there's also that sense of one's own beauty, one's own gorgeousness that doesn't lack humility. So what the unique self teaching says is specialness, if it is coming from this place of my separate ego self, that I'm better than you are, that I'm comparing myself, is one thing. But uniqueness is each person's own individual beauty that manifests in a way that's different than anyone else in the world. And that's something to be celebrated. It's something that you arrived with, right? So if you're going to use God language, it's God-given, and is not something to either hide, put the basket over the light, if you will, or something to say, and that makes me better than you, but to simply say, here I am in my own uniqueness, and here you are in yours, and you are in yours. And what could we all do if we firmly and easily knew that about ourselves and went into the world full of that, which is really divinity manifesting itself as each individual person?